What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are having a great day as always. Today we're going to go over some small things that have come up with the 1-ton swap that Cameron and I have been discussing and just wanted to catch you guys up on. Sorry about the delay in uploads in the past month. We've been super busy. Kenzie and I have been traveling all over going to events. We went from New Jersey, Jeep Invasion, which was in Wildwood, up to Pennsylvania. We went to Carlisle, Albridge Jeep Show, I think is what it was called. We went there the next weekend. And then I've just been taking it easy for the last week and a half with some of the business stuff, focusing on that, but we're back to frequent uploads. So I was getting ready to weld in the truss on the front axle of the Dana 60, and Cameron and I were going over the rear axle setup. Now, as a lot of you already know, I'm sure, the gas tank on these sits super low, and you don't have a ton of room to go backwards with the axle, or you actually end up, when the axle goes up, hitting the gas tank. So on this Jeep, we have a tank tuck, the affordable off-road skid plate setup, tank tuck, all that kind of stuff. On this one, I was going to do a tank tuck, but then we realized we're going to need a lot more room back here for 40s, 42s, 43s, whatever tire we end up going with. Even if we just go with 40s, like my Wrangler has, we're going to need more room. So we're probably going to stretch the back a little bit farther. And that's going to give us some issues because the diff is going to definitely hit the gas tank. So originally we were discussing cutting out where the spare tire sits and raising the gas tank up, but I still don't think that will buy us enough room to fit the 40s, 42s, 43s stretched back, really any room, because this diff's also super small in comparison to the 1-ton. I'll go ahead and show you how big that is. It's in the garage now. So this is the rear Sterling 1-ton axle, and as you can see, the diff is massive. This is next to my hand. And we're going to need a lot of room. We're going to need to make a ton of room for that thing to fit and be able to move around under the Jeep without any issues. So what we're thinking is we go with the fuel cell. Now, I've never really had a fuel cell or know anybody that does. So if you guys have any input on this, make sure you guys go ahead and comment down below. But I'm thinking a 15-gallon fuel cell would be pretty good for the Grand Cherokee. It's obviously not a ton of gas, but I think it should do all right for off-road trips. It's not like we're going to be driving it forever on the road. Most of its miles would be driving to events that are close by, driving on the road around events when we're at the events, and then maybe driving it to Roush once or twice if we were going to push it. Most of the time it'll be towed everywhere though, so I think 15 gallons will be good for most off-road trips. So if you guys have any input on that, go ahead and comment down below if you guys think 15 gallons would be enough, or if I should maybe go towards 20, somewhere in that range. Now, Cameron did also build a custom fuel cell for his race car, so maybe we could work something out there to where we get one for the Grand Cherokee if I need a specific size or anything like that. So if you guys have any input, make sure you guys comment down below on what you think we should do there. And since we were talking about that, we were also talking about just how high up to cut this to fit the big tires, all that stuff. Now, obviously, we can't go ahead and do that now since we're just sitting on these 35-inch radar tires. I mean, I could mount up the 40s, but we're not sure on final size yet. We got to get the axles under and all of that. But we were thinking maybe, since we're going to have to cut a lot of this out, just cutting a majority of this out, some of the floor out and everything, and then doing some custom inner fender wells there. Cameron does a lot of stuff like that on his cars and stuff he does at work and everything. But those are the two big things that we found that we're probably going to have to adjust some stuff on and do a little bit of custom work for just to get the axles set up. The front shouldn't really be an issue. I mean, we could stretch that forward pretty far before we run to an issue. Biggest issue stretching forward would be steering geometry, but there's ways to fix that. And if we have to, we will. I'd rather not stretch the Jeep too much because we already have a pretty long wheelbase. I learned that with the 4-door Wrangler instead of a 2-door. Honestly, not an ideal setup for off-roading. Kind of wish I had a 2-door, but the 4-door is really cool. But we don't really want a long wheelbase vehicle for off-roading. Plus, it's going to be sitting as low as possible, similar to my Wrangler, kind of like a low center of gravity build. We want to keep it low, but on big tires with a lot of down travel. That seems to be the way that works best for me off-roading. But we'll see how that goes on the Grand Cherokee. It might be kind of hard to do that. I'm not really sure. I've never built one to this extreme. Honestly, this one's the most built Grand Cherokee I have or have seen really in person. So I don't really have a ton of experience with them. I see a ton online that are way bigger. So I've been asking those guys a ton of questions and they've been super helpful. But as far as that goes, those are the two main issues we have with the 1-ton swap right now. Now, on to the 1-ton axles themselves. Right after I film this video, actually, I'm going to begin welding the truss onto the front Dana 60. Then we have the rear truss about to be ordered for the Sterling. I'm going to get the IRO 4-link truss setup here. Should be fairly simple to install on the rear. The rear is a lot less in depth. There's just a little bit of stuff we have to cut off. Then we're good. From there, we have the trusses and housings. They'll be ready to bolt up underneath of the Jeep, which shouldn't really be too challenging. I mean, it's the same thing we did on the Wrangler in like 3 days before an event. So we'll have to do that to those Jeeps. Then it's just a matter of setting up the gears, which I'll go over that in a separate video, what gear ratios we're going with, all that kind of stuff. I'll need gears, axle shafts, lockers. We're going with air lockers, I believe. I think I'm going to go with Yukon, Yukon or ARB, but I'm kind of leaning towards Yukon. I have ARB on the Wrangler. Want to try something new, so I'll probably go with Yukon on the Grand Cherokee. Now, as far as axle shafts goes, I was going to go with RCVs like my Wrangler, which have held up amazing on the 40s, and this is just a Dana 44, so realistically probably shouldn't be running 40s on it, but it's held up perfectly fine, and it's lasted, this is probably, I believe, the 3rd year on this setup. So I was going to go with RCVs on the 1-tons on the Grand Cherokee, but they're very, very expensive. So what I'm thinking is I'll go with chromolys for now. If they keep breaking or I have big issues in the future, we'll go ahead and upgrade to RCVs. But for the time being, there's other places I'd rather put that money, like custom work on it. We got to do the cage still. So there's a ton of money that's going to have to be spent here. So if I can save a little bit on not getting RCVs, I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. Also, before I wrap up this video, I wanted to give you guys a sneak peek at the 2.5-ton steering setup for the Jeep Grand Cherokee that just showed up. So here are the links for the steering. They're massive, solid 70-75 aluminum. So these will have a little bit of flex in them if you landed on a rock, but they're not going to stay bent how a steel steering setup will do. Now this is the first official kit. It's going to be going on my Grand Cherokee. Then from there, after we have an install video, we'll go ahead and release it to the public. I'm also making a 1-ton steering kit, so we're not only going to have the 2.5-ton setup, but we're going to have a 1-ton as well, because we wanted to have something that would fit everybody's build. Some people don't really need the massive steering setup, but a 1-ton is a solid upgrade over factory. Once we go ahead and install this, I want to show you guys the difference between how thick the factory steering setup is and then our aftermarket aluminum steering setup. But that basically wraps up this video. I just wanted to go over some updates with you guys, and now I'm going to get to work on the Dana 60 front axle so we can get some videos installing that hopefully sooner than expected. We'll see how it goes. You guys will see an update video welding the truss onto that and everything along those lines. So as always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.